Welcome back to the Big Homies podcast where we're here to talk basketball, culture, leadership, and everything in between. I'm your boy, Coach C. Bell, and I got my guy
T Flesh 500 in the building, and we back like we never left, fam.
back at it. T Flesh
Like a
500.
crack at it. Man,
Man,
it's been a minute, man. How you been? You
you
out there
got
living
you
that
got
good
that.
life?
You look like you just left the barbershop for getting that clean, that shaved head. That you got that special treatment. You know what I'm saying? Or they brought out the hot towels for you. You know what I'm saying? The hot towels, and they might have gave you some essential oils. You know what I'm saying?
The last time I went to a barbershop and got a haircut, like $50, I was like, "Hey, man, I'm gonna go ahead and give you this 50, but I'm never gonna see you again." This
Like
is the
I'm
last time we gonna
I'm
see each
I'm
other.
gonna give you this 50, but this is the
Yep,
last 50 you gonna get from me.
that's it. That's it. It was like I
uh,
felt like I got robbed.
you did. You did.
Yeah.
You did.
I was like,
You
fam, you
did.
didn't have to do much. I ain't even got no hair. What are we doing? What
He
are we
took
doing?
your
Did anybody ask you for no massage?
took your hair and your money.
That part. I can't do it. These barbers is committing highway robbery.
Oh man, man. Hey, we just got we're gonna talk about a lot of things today.
So I'm gonna start the show off real smoking, man. I don't think you're ready for this. This one, you know, the
Oh, he
show's on
hit us
another
with
level.
the
This one, you
ball.
know, this one, you know, the show on another
Let's
level, man.
go.
I got a big shout out to my man T-Shirt Chris for hooking up the Big
Oh
Homies
yes.
podcast. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
sir.
Making it official. Good looking out.
Let's go. Let's go. We
He got
merch,
the merch
man.
on down. Keep the party
All the
going.
way
That's what
up.
we
We
gonna do.
going up.
Keep
We
the
going
party
up.
going.
It's going up. When it's up, it's up, man. You know what I'm saying?
That's what she
And
said.
hey, pause. Amari Bailey situation, former UCLA player, former Sierra Canyon guard, All American. I'm reading stories and seeing reports that he's currently going on college visits and he is looking to return to college after being drafted in the NBA. And I believe he played about 10 to 12 games in the league. So it's a lot going on there as well, which is can open up a whole another can of worms in terms of players returning back, to college basketball.
Yeah, I know this is a topic that you brought up months ago, right? When we first started seeing players from the G League talking about that they were going back into the transfer portal and possibly going back to college, division, whatever, one, two, or three. And I think a lot of the rules are changing, and we're looking at players, right? We're looking at players like, how could you do something like that? But what it comes down to is it's these organizations. Like now that the money is really involved, it's a free fall society, man. You know, it's a free market. And where the money is, that's where the players are going. Right now, you got a player at BYU is making $8 million a year. So whatever is happening in college is having is having an effect also in the NBA, and I think it's out of control. But at the same time, we can't be mad at the players for it because it's legal. It's something that they're allowing to do, right? And I can't be mad at somebody going back to get their bag ever. You know what I'm saying? Because there's only so many years you have that opportunity. So right now, I see a lot of these kids that's taking advantage of a loophole in the system.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. With the rules change, you're only going to be able to do what's allowed. So if it's allowed, then hey, that's a rule, and you're quote unquote playing by the rules. So that's why we're seeing so many changes, and I think it's happening so fast that people are struggling to process everything.
I'm dying to see the matchup between Chet and Wimby in the playoffs. I want to see what their real strategy is. I don't think they've shown their true hand right now going up against the Spurs because that's probably going to be a Western Conference final, right? So I'm definitely looking forward to that matchup, and I think it's going to be a chess game, right? I think it's going to come down to coaching, and it's going to come down to who wants it more. I definitely wanted to ask you this question. I think it's one of the best questions of the first segment that I probably possibly could ask. Hey, but does Philly have any real chance of having a competitive battle in the East? You know, they have an outstanding point guard. They got an outstanding rookie in the backcourt with them. They arguably have one of the best big men in the league, and then they're going to get Paul George back towards the end of the season. What do you think Philly's chances are getting back in the East?
I think they're definitely a sleeper in the East. I think they got a good chance because if you look at their roster, Joel Embiid, you got Tyrese Maxey, you got the rookie Edgecombe over there, and you got Paul George over there. That's a good nucleus to have, and I like those chances. I know if I'm the coach, if you give me that, I'm not afraid of anybody. You know what I'm saying?
That's
But
the
it
East.
comes yeah, yeah. So, but it comes down to those guys. They got to be on the same page. They got to be locked in on the same page, following the game plan. And I think it starts with Embiid. Embiid's got to. He's got. This is it. This is not. This is it. It's not a. This is it moment for him. But he has to treat it like that because he's getting older. His body has been through a lot of injuries in this league. He's missed seasons and stuff like that. So why not do it now when you got a talented Tyrese Maxey with you? You got Paul George, who's had a lot of success in this league, and then you got a guy that's one of the top rookies in the NBA right now. So why not do that? And then you also have Nick Nurse, who's a championship head coach. So why not do it? And it's perfect. I always like being on teams. I don't know how you felt about it, where we had the talent, but we wasn't being talked about. I
Oh
used to
yeah,
be, I'm a little crazy. I use that as I wake up, if I'm with Philly, I'm waking up in the morning, we coming after these people. Why they ain't talking about us? Even if I'm lying to myself to a little certain extent, where those teams are currently, their current state is better than us right now, quote unquote. But that's what I'm fueling off of. They don't respect us. We're going to make these people talk about us. And that's how we approach it. We spoiling people's season. That's how I would approach it. Now, with that being
did I
said,
tell you Silk Sheets analogy real quick?
yeah, 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 yeah. I
Oh,
like this. I like
yeah,
it. You said
Teddy
it
Atlas
before, but I
said.
want you to say it again.
Yeah, Teddy Atlas said that when you a young, hungry boxer, you waking up at 4 in the morning out in the cold running, getting it in. He's like, but when you become world champion, you start making the millions. It's hard to wake up at 5 a.m. when you're sleeping in silk sheets, fam. It's hard.
Facts.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
facts.
underdog is hungry.
Yeah, because just imagine this, Coach T Flesh 500. Imagine Philly and Detroit. Would we really be now? I'm going to pick Detroit, but would we really be as basketball enthusiasts and fans and coaches be surprised that Philly ends up beating them? Like, look what they got. Like Embiid versus Durant.
Philly
Okay,
winning.
Maxey versus Cunningham.
Philly winning.
Uh, Paul George versus what's what's uh what's the wing's name? The twin Thompson. Because in the playoffs, you don't got no time to overanalyze. You got to get the shit done. All right. He's got to have. It's funny. I was talking to somebody, a coach, maybe a few years ago, and they said you win a series. They said your your secondary player and your bench players win a series. What? He
They
said,
can
"Oh
help you.
yeah." He said, "You're going to have one game per series. You're going to have one game where one of your bench players literally wins the game."
Goes off. It goes
Yeah.
off.
He said, "You're going to have a game where your stars win you like two games automatic. That's Embiid and Maxey. Not saying that Paul's not, but he's third on that list. Then he has to win a game. That's the series.
Yep.
That's 4 games.
You're absolutely right. When you look at it like that,
Yeah. So Paul just needs that 30 plus game where he goes off,
and he's
which is,
capable.
yes, it's easy for him.
Yep.
I haven't been around a player where the game was that easy for him. You know what I'm saying? Because he's a machine. Like you know, he can do everything. Handle, shoot the three. He's strong. That's one of his underestimated qualities as a basketball player, how strong he is. And I don't know, I know he's a Fresno State Bulldog. I don't know if
Shout
you've
out
seen,
to the
yeah,
Bulldogs.
shout out to Fresno State Bulldogs. Nevada over him. Don't trip on that. Wolfpack in the building. But this dude is 6'9". He's 6'9". He's not 6'6", 6'7" like Kobe. He's 6'9", 6'7". He's 6'9", and he's strong. Like if you watch him play, he has a low center of gravity. We all already know when you have a low center of gravity, you're already stronger. And then, he's strong. He got a strong body. All right, like it's easy for. I shouldn't say easy because it's not. It can't anybody do it, but him, you can literally say 30. All right, cool. That's how good he is.
Yeah,
He just got to do
facts.
it. You just got to do it.
I agree 100%. There aren't a lot of players that make scoring look easy, and Kevin Durant is walking out there like almost like a 7 foot guard, knocking down
Yeah,
threes.
he is. He is a guard.
Yeah, and another player out there to make it look easy like that, just on a guard perspective, is James Harden. But the one
Yeah.
thing that you brought up about Cleveland is going to come down to their defense. And right now, they got one lockdown defender, and that's their big man. And you just brought up matchups. I don't think he's locking down Joel Embiid, which is the only reason why I wanted to bring up Philly in this equation, because I don't think anybody in the East is really talking about them. And so I feel like if you're going to have a surprise team, Philly's one of them teams that nobody in the East really wants to play. Yeah, Detroit's looking great right now, and I'm fine with that, but that was the first half of the season, right? And so it makes Boston the scariest team because they're in a number 2 spot, and they don't even have Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum doesn't even have to come back and play 100%. He only needs to be 50% of who he used to be, because he's still going to be able to give you those games that, like you were bringing up, that a rookie can give you coming off the bench. He only needs to have one good game in the series. He's probably going to be on limited minutes if he does come back, and I feel like that's all they really need right now in Boston, because they're clicking, right? They're clicking. They're rolling on all cylinders like Indiana was last year, and that's a
I,
scary thing.
yeah, I gotta say this. You basketball people need to be ashamed of your damn self. You just said Boston is number 2 in the East. And why aren't we talking about Mr. Jaylen Brown? Why aren't we talking about what he's doing? Everybody said before the season, oh, this is one of those years they probably gonna, play in the play-in situation. They don't got. Do we see what this man is doing? Give this man his credit, his flowers, or whatever you want to call it. This dude got this team playing good basketball, number 2 in the East. Shout out to their coach.
Yeah.
Shout out to Missoula, another young coach,
Okay.
doing well, doing a hell of a job. All right, doing a hell of a job in Boston, and people are not talking about it. You can make the argument that he can get coach of the year. What he's
Easy.
doing without his star player. And
Easy.
and y'all better start giving Jaylen Brown his credit, how good that man is. He's balling, he's hooping. Like, get that man his credit.
But one thing that stands out about what uh, Brown is doing right now, it reminds me of Scottie Pippen when Michael Jordan retired. Scottie Pippen was dying to be the number 1 guy. I think people forgot that Brown is the highest paid player in the NBA,
Yeah.
right? And everybody said that he was number 2. Everybody was like, "Yo, he's not better than Tatum." They're two different players. They don't play alike. They're two different players. But with that said, he said, "Hey, our best players out. Watch what I'm gonna do." Scottie Pippen was arguably the MVP when Michael Jordan retired the first time. He tore the league up. He led the team in scoring, assists, rebounds, and steals the first year Mike went out. Who do you think the face of the league is? Because I think the obvious front runner is or will be a foreign player, with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander winning MVP last year. You got Luka on the tear leading the league in scoring. But then you got that alien in Wemby who's undeniable. But there's a player in Minnesota right now that has the personality, who has all the swag in the world, who has the game, plays both sides of the basketball, that can easily be the face of the league.
You know what? I think that, to me, to be the face of the league, you gotta accomplish certain things. And I think that, going back, my sleeper in the West is actually Minnesota. And it's
Mm,
because It's because of Anthony Edwards. And 2 seasons ago, I believe they went to the Western Conference Finals, I
Mhm.
believe. So, he's another guy that experienced things and he's gone far in the playoffs and he's not afraid. I
At
think
all.
that I think that I love the fact that he's open and honest. Maybe he's a little bit too unfiltered, why he's not the quote unquote face, but he's gotta become undeniable by going and snatching that trophy out somebody's hand. And to me, when you have the trophy, you can't be denied. You can speak as loud as you want to. You know what I'm saying? You can stand on tables and yell to the top of the mountain. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna be the king of the hill at that point. So I would love to see, Ant Man go get him a championship finals MVP. And now he has the accolades behind it. You know, I'm a little unclear and I go back and forth on the timing of making somebody the face of the league because if you go back in the day, I think Mike was the face before he got the rings.
Right.
So, it's a little bit unfair for me to say that, but at this juncture, they're not really doing that. So I believe that for him to get it, he has to go get those accolades. For right now, I feel like LeBron is still the face of the league, if you ask me. He's the ticket, he's the box office, and obviously he's older. He's in his last time playing in the league, but he's still the face. I believe that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has a heavy influence. He does have the accolades, and I think we're just experiencing a transition period in terms of, like you said, I didn't even know that's a alarming number, by the way. The last 7 MVPs weren't American born.
Oh
That's
yeah, nah,
crazy.
not at all.
That's
Because
crazy.
Giannis is
So
in that group too. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Giannis got an MVP, Joel Embiid got an MVP, SGA got an MVP. Like it's been a long time since an American-born player was named MVP in the National Basketball Association, and it's something that you can't. It's undeniable now at this point.
yeah. So we're going through a transition period. I think that us as fans here in America, we we have it. I think the people choose the face of the league, because that's who's the consumer and they're watching it. So they're having a hard time because these aren't like you go back to Michael Jordan. I use him as the best example. Michael Jordan had been known since five-star camp in high school. Michael Jordan, they tell the story about how he got cut. He got cut from varsity as a freshman. Come on now.
A lot of
Okay,
fun
so
too.
a sophomore or whatever, because back in those days
Yeah,
they didn't go to high school in ninth grade. So it was a sophomore. He was trying to do something different. He didn't make it, but people don't talk about that he was, an All American high school player. He was a McDonald's All American, going to North Carolina, So we followed his story. So there was, people were familiar with Michael Jordan. I think that in terms of being the face of the league, to be familiar, fans have to kind of know these players, them being American born. So it's hard for the foreign guys, but it might get to that point because, like I said, Shay's from Canada, but the kids love him. The kids love him. Like my son is 10 years old, and good luck trying to get his shoe. His shoe sells out.
right.
Good luck. These guys are. He's a rock star. So I think people can say what they want, but LeBron's still the face of this league.
A perfect segue into our next conversation is: are coaches allowed to coach their players anymore? Like, are they allowed to hold their players to accountability? And it's starting on the younger levels, even in travel basketball. Like, there are parents now that'll start their own travel team, and you got kids playing on 4 or 5 different travel teams, and they're like, "Yo, I don't like how coach yelled at me the last game. I might not go back to that team." And in college, the transfer portal is insane, so you got kids transferring that literally can make the Final Four and be like, "Yeah, we made the Final Four, and I started on that team, but BYU offering me $8 million a year. I'm out of here." You know what I'm saying? This money I may not ever touch again. And so it's almost impossible to coach a team how you want to coach them without getting under somebody's skin in a sensitive climate. How do you feel about that?
And we're just in a different state of, state right now in terms of how things are as leaders, not just in sports, but in education and other areas as well. And I'm seeing that um, even at the highest level, the way that guys coach, um, guys are, I think that there is star power. And I think that you have to be careful with how you coach certain guys because there is ego involved, and there is, you have to be very fortunate. And I think one of the fortunate situations that we've witnessed was Greg Popovich coaching Tim Duncan. And I've heard several stories about how Tim, obviously Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players ever to touch a basketball, five-time NBA champion. He allowed Coach Pop to coach him. Never questioned him. Coach Pop, I've been told stories how Pop coached him hard. He never talked back once. So what that did was that made everybody else fall in line. Now that situation is not always the case. You have certain situations where you have superstar talent. They're not trying to hear what the coach has to say, and if they're unhappy, they might go to management, and management has to decide between that player, which is a great talent, that brings in fans, that sells jerseys, that makes all stars, that average such and such points per game, that also attracts other players that want to be there and play for him, or the coach. And unfortunately, you know, usually 90% or 90 to 95% of the time, they choose a player. So that creates this precedence that you have to be careful on how you hold players accountable. Now, I will say this, and this is just coach talk. To me, you always publicly have to have your team back. You can be honest without, like, as a coach, like, we're both coaches. And now I'm at the point I coach my son 10 and under, AAU. Shout out to the Left Coast Legends, my team, 10 and under. Um, and when you coaching these young men and young ladies, you have to they want to know that you have their back. So they become like your children almost. And sometimes when let's go to the college level, if your coach in a press conference after you lost, right after a press conference, I mean, right after the game in a press conference, says, the team played like this or played like that, didn't play well, they don't deserve to wear the uniform. Players who come to practice every day, they feel like they're working their butts off, kind of feel like they might have been betrayed if that happens. Now, I'm not saying that's the case. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, like, you have to put yourself in the position of a player. So I think that coaches are unfairly not being able to hold these players accountable, and I think that starts with the upbringing. It starts at the home. If you're not being held accountable in your home, how on earth can you be held accountable within a team from a head coach? If your own parents are not holding you accountable, how the hell are you going to be held accountable when it comes to a team? You're not going to flip the switch and be held accountable with your team, and then at the house, there's no accountability. It starts with upbringing, and it starts with your parents. And I think that right now we're at a different time where coaching your team, quote unquote, with intensity is misconstrued with being unfair and unreasonable, and coaches sometimes become villains. However, I feel like, going back to my point, as a coach, when you're in a press conference, no matter the situation, you have to word, you have to put your words together properly to protect your team. I think that it's certain things that should be said publicly, and there's certain things that should be said within private. For instance, if your team didn't play well, you can keep it just that general. Hey, we didn't play well. We got to do better. We're going to fix these things in practice. Now, when you get in that locker room, you can tear that shit apart. That it's a privilege to be here. You guys are playing for yourselves and not the name across your chest. All right. You guys got to play harder, be tougher, be smarter, play together. This is not who the F we are. If you can go play like this, then go find somewhere else and it will replace you. You see what I'm saying?
All day.
So um that's how I am as a coach. But at the end of the day, I think that we're in a more sensitive times, man. It's a lot of sensitivity out here, man, straight up. And it's funny. One of my players, man, he's so talented. Uh, Probably 3 months ago, his dad comes up to me, and I so appreciate this, man. His dad comes up to me and say, "Coach, if my son's not doing what he's supposed to do, you have full permission to yell at him." I just stared at his dad. I said, you said what? He said, I said, if my son is not doing what he's supposed to be doing, you have full permission to yell at him and make sure he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. I said, Dad, thank you. I said, I've never been told that before. He says, really? I said, no, I've never been told that before. Thank you. I said, I really appreciate that. I said, you have no idea what that means to me. And he said, yeah, my son can take it. And I started coaching him hard, man. And he said, my son, whatever you tell him to do, he's going to do it, coach. But you got to tell him. So I'm like, hey, you got to rebound. You got to play hard. I'm on this kid, right? And my wife comes to the game after the game in the car. She says, babe, why are you coaching that kid so hard? I said, what are you talking about? She said, the kid, why? I said, oh, I said, that's how his father wants me to coach him. Like, he's like, she's like, what? And he was like, she's like, I was almost embarrassed to be sitting next to his dad and you're coaching him so hard. I was like, babe, like his dad wants me to coach him that hard. And she talked to the dad. And he was like, yeah, that's the dad. That's exactly it.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, and and as a coach, and it's funny, and I'm being long winded. He says to me, this is just last week. You know, I coach my team hard, even though they're 10-year-olds. I really do. If you see me coach, like I'm very intense. It's like as a 10-year-old, now all 10-year-olds can play for me. It's like, but I'm preparing these kids for high school. And we had a big tournament last week at the Sports Academy, which we won, by the way. Won the tournament. And
Congratulations.
thank you. I appreciate it. And it was some people that took notice how hard I coached our team. And I think it was kind of like worry in the air, like, are the kids okay? Because they see the kids, they don't respond. Like they're not like crying or
Right.
they just, yes, coach, yes, coach. So they don't understand that this is how we get coached. And after the game, that same dad comes up to me. He said another parent from another team said, "Are those kids all right?" And he said, "Coach, I laughed at her." He said, he said, "You know what I told her?" He says, "I told her if your kid is if you're worried about your kid getting yelled at, you need to take them out of sports." Your She said, "Your kid's in the wrong place if that's what you're worried about." And that made me feel so good. I was so happy. And shout out to my parents from my organization, Left Coast Legends. They allowed me to coach their kids, and I'm allowed to hold them accountable because I can't coach any other way. I believe we're in a state of basketball where players say they want to be coached, but they really don't want to be coached.
Oh yeah.
It sounds good, But players who really want to be coached really want to become great. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander really wants to be coached. You understand? Jokic really wants to be coached. We never heard Jokic complaining about coaching. So my message, we don't have to do the message at the end of this episode. My message is to young players, be coachable. Stop blaming coaching. Hold yourself accountable. Matter of fact, I'm thankful for how I grew up because my coaches always held me accountable. And not one time did I get mad at them for it and go to my mom to fucking cry about it. You see what I'm saying? So, does that answer your question?
Most definitely. I mean, you had a travel coach that was the nicest person in the world when he wasn't inside the basketball gym. But once we got inside the basketball gym, he's a whole different person, a whole
Yeah, it's
different
like,
beast.
yeah, yeah.
And I honestly feel like in the era that you played high school basketball at Westchester, everybody couldn't play for a crazy white coach like Eddie Zam. People
No.
think Eddie Zam is one of the cool, level head on the basketball court. You know how many stories I heard
Different.
about how Zam was in practice?
Different. You have to be
Totally different
mentally
person.
tough. You have to be mentally tough to get through an Ed exam practice.
Yep.
If you weren't mentally tough, pack that shit up and transfer to Hawthorne. No different. Don't disrespect the Hawthorne, but I'm just saying.
Hey, there's a couple of schools out there where you can go out there and get your shit off. At the time, Hamilton was one of them schools. Go to Hamilton, go to Culver City, go to a
Yeah,
school nobody ever heard of. Like there's a LA High, go to LA
yeah,
High, right? Like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a whole bunch of schools you can
yeah,
go to get your stuff off. But if you want to come to a championship culture, like a Westchester, if you want to be in a competitive environment like an Inglewood High School and go D1, oh, you're gonna have to go through the fire of this coaching stuff, right? And
yeah.
one thing I don't think people understand, and I'll get into the race of it in a minute, but one thing I don't think people understand, especially parents, a lot of times for our youth, basketball and sports is a life lesson. It's bigger than the game. It's bigger
Mm-hmm.
than that. You know how often I have parents come up to me and be like, "Hey, coach, can you talk to my son or my daughter because they won't listen to me?" And I don't have children, so we're in two different positions in this spot. So in my mind, I'm like, "You're their parent, though. Like, how are you? You asking you like you talking about they won't do their homework or they won't wake up on time, but yet and still we got practice at 6 a.m. and they always on time, right? And when we were growing up, what tripped me out was is like you taking your kids to the mall at 6 in the morning to get those new Jordans and they're on time, but you can't get them
Man,
on time to school. And
come
you
on,
saying, "Hey,
man.
coach, can you talk to my kid?" And this is why sports is a life lesson because it prepares you for life. Mentally, you can't be late for that bus. You can't be late to practice. You can't forget your jersey. You got to clock in on time like going to work. And a lot of times, if you follow those directions that you're supposed to and you're a solid student athlete, the world gets a little bit easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little, you've been conditioned and trained to be able to, and we talk about this all the time. The one thing that you and I do that a lot of people don't is we respect authority.
Right.
As hard as I am, as disciplined and gangster as I want to be, I still respect authority. I respect my
Mm-hmm.
elders. Anybody my age or older, I still call them by their last name. I hear a lot of these kids walking through the classrooms talking about, "Oh, that's Carol and this is her." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, hey, come here, come here, come here. You call her by her last name. What is
Yeah.
wrong with you?
And
What is
put that
wrong?"
miss or mister
Right,
on the front end of it.
that part. If they want you to call them by their first name, understandable. But that's Mister Such and Such.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Mrs. Such and Such.
Mr. John. Hey,
Right.
Miss Tina. Yeah, absolutely.
It go a long way, man. And you have to break them in like when they're young. And so when you get kids to buy in at a young age, like you're doing, those kids grow up and they end up being solid, man. And it
Mm-hmm.
makes it a lot easier for everybody to buy in, especially just to go back for a second, if you can get your star players or your best players on the team to buy in. So Phil Jackson had a story. The one thing that I noticed with Phil Jackson is when he took the Laker job, he said that Shaq comes from a militant family where in his family it was yes sir, no ma'am, you know what I'm saying, all of that different type of stuff. And Kobe is the only male in his family, and he's always been catered to. So you also have to know how to coach certain players. Yes, I'm gonna coach the team hard, but every player is different. Just like when you have kids, all of your kids are different. So you can't coach everybody the same.
That's a fact. And that's where, see, we're getting a lot of jewels here today. As coaches, you must know your players. You must know your players' background, the cities they're from, where they grew up with, where they grew up at, their neighborhoods, their family dynamic. You can't coach a kid that grew up in the projects with his mama the same way you coach a kid that grew up in the suburbs with both his parents. You got to find a way to get through. Like a lot of these coaches, they lose connectivity with their team because they don't know their players. They treat their players like
Yep.
employees. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like above getting a bucket, I want to know if my players are okay. The first thing I ask before we practice on Tuesday and Thursday night, how's everybody doing? How are you feeling? How was school today? What did anybody learn in school today? Do we got tests tomorrow? Oh, we got tests tomorrow? Okay, instead of going from 6 to 8, we're gonna go from 6 to 7:30 because I want you guys to go home and study for your test. You see what I'm saying? It's about
Oh yeah,
we have responsibilities as big homies to be leaders. All right, because we got to push
big
this next
facts.
generation. You know what I'm saying? And once they get that torch, we're gonna sit back and we're gonna be watching, and we're gonna be in advisory roles. But right now, we fully involved. We in the trenches with them, right? But we preparing them to walk on their own. You know what I'm saying? And that's why it's important. Coaches got to be better, and they got to be tied in and connected. Your money, and I love that these players are getting it because I'm one for financial development, not just basketball development, financial development, being financially literate, also having generational wealth. I just read something the other day where Bryce James, I don't know if it's true, we can fact check it later, made $20 million in NIL money, and he didn't play 1 minute at Arizona this year. So I'm like, why would he ever be in a rush to go to the NBA? For what? Like, let's be real. Like, we talk about the transfer portal, right? If I was a college age player, I can play a season wherever I'm at, such and such state, play well, got a nice NIL deal. We have a good season. I have a good season personally. I'm in the transfer portal if it's more money out there. Because bigger picture, no, I'm not saying it's all about the money. But if I have a chance to secure the rest of my life and then possibly make my children's life a lot easier, I'm going to do that because it's basketball at the end of the day. It has to be a place that I want to go, a good school, good coach, players I want to play with. But yeah, I'm in a transfer portal. Like, I'm not going to leave $10 million on the table. I'm going to go get the money. Like, but I'm going to do it smart. I'm going to secure the bag for my family. All right, you got to understand that when you come from poverty and you don't come from you don't come from generational wealth. You don't have an inheritance. That's a chance. That's life changes. That's a life changing situation, man.
Hey, it's the same situation that Arch Manning is in last year, not this past football season, but last year he didn't play a lick. He was the highest paid college player in football, and he didn't play one game. He redshirted. And now you look at Arch Manning, he's on the field, still highest player in the league, and he's getting paid more than the head coach. Bryce James is getting paid more than the head coach. And so when we talk about like how much power does the coach actually have, I got a kid on my team getting paid more than me. A kid. And it makes
Mm-hmm.
me look at the G League like it's a disappearing league because the college basketball rankings, they have more camera time. They have a national schedule. They have March Madness, right? It's just more money being pumped in to the College Basketball Association. And so I feel like the G League is one of them leagues that's actually disappearing. It's one of the leagues that's going to be off the map in the next 10 years if they don't change their format. And it's kind of scary, you know what I'm saying? Because college has so much power. And I don't think people realize how much money was actually in college basketball until NIL. Because let's keep it 100, let's keep it a buck. Players was already getting paid. Now it's just legal. Now people know how much they really getting paid, right? And
And it's
so
more money. It's instead of it used to be 100,000 or 200,000. Now you're talking about six,
millions.
7 million for the elite player.
Easy, easy. And so it, I guess, a conversation that I would like to segue into is player development. Like when you got players going to a team for the first time, it's like, how long you really think I'm gonna be here? I'm getting paid $20 million, and if I don't like the way I'm getting treated here, and a team offer me $22 million, I'm out of here, right? So now you got a situation where players aren't really developing. You know what I'm saying? And the game is changing. And when you look at the game, especially from a competitive level, that's why I love the also the format, how we started the conversation off of the All-Star game this year. You had the world team, right, versus the youngins and the old school kids and the old school cats, right? And the world team, which is why you've had so many MVPs, is because not only are they more disciplined and sometimes in some cases hungrier, but they're more developed. And I look at coaches or programs in the college basketball like Gonzaga. And when it was a while ago, but I was at LMU, and one of the assistant coaches says a lot of the players that we go after are foreign kids because they come over here and not only are they more disciplined, but they respect the scholarship. Like these kids aren't looking to transfer. They're happy to have a scholarship and to be in America. So they come over here and they take care of school. They don't get any trouble. They grinding and they're willing to be here for 3 to 4 years. Gonzaga has mostly foreign players that don't leave, which is why they have great college basketball teams because that team has developed and played on the same basketball team with each other for at least 2 or 3 years in a row versus when you get a team like I don't remember all the players. I'm pretty sure you do. You'll be able to break it down. That was on that Duke team was Zion Williamson, but they were together 1 year and they had the best player roster in college basketball. They didn't go deep in the tournament. Didn't. So player development, I think, is one of those things where there's not a lot of emotional stability. It's just not. And so when you're talking to big homies like us who grew up in a situation where fundamentals were everything and development was everything, how do you look at the state of basketball when it comes to player development specifically, especially being a coach now?
It's the most important thing, more than ever. It's a global game as we see it. So at all levels, you have to be working on every aspect of your game. We're in an era where, well, it's always been the case. It's not nothing new. It's about skill level and it's about fundamentals, like we talked about before. But it's more important than ever that you have a high level of skills. Your skill level has to be extremely high. So you have to be working on it daily. I believe that you have to have a system with you as a player. And this is where I will make the argument with people who say you don't need a trainer. Because the way basketball is the way it is, I think that in any 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 area where it's a craft, there's a teacher. Like you can find a kid who plays the violin. They go to violin lessons. They have a teacher. Like art, they have art teachers. My my daughter is in dance. She has a dance teacher. So stop saying that you don't need coaches and trainers. All right. I get it. We hooped, and I said this on the show, and I'm probably somebody gonna clip this up and say, hey, he's contradicting himself. I'm not saying we don't hoop. You still hoop. But if I'm connected to Coach T Fletch and I'm a youngin coming up, I'll be crazy not to say, hey, coach, could I get a training session with you? Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm trying to work on my handles. I'm trying to work on my passing and my finishing. Like, could you not put that child or kid through a workout?
Easy work.
Easy work, right? So they're going to get better, all right, because they're learning, all right. They're learning, so they need. It's more than ever. You need a system that you work with, that you work through daily. And I had a question for you, Coach.
Oh yeah.
I'm curious to know what what do you see from your best players? What are they doing? What makes them so good? What do you notice about them that they're doing that separates them? Why are they your best players? In keeping in mind player development.
That's a great question, man. And I'm glad you asked. I feel like this is only a question that another coach would feel comfortable enough to ask. And that's the perfect question because I feel like it's three things. The first thing is, what kind of environment are you in? Are you in an environment where you actually have parents holding you accountable? Are you in an environment where you have teammates that are saying, let's go to the gym and let's work out, right? So it's the people around you, it's your group. That's the first thing. The second thing is you got to be able to take a break sometimes from your main sport. Nowadays, I see a lot of these kids, especially in the summertime, they'll have two games on a Friday, turn around, have two games on a Saturday. And then, especially if they're winning, they'll have another two games on a Sunday. That's six
Mm,
games in 3 days for children whose muscles
mm,
aren't developed. And when you look at NBA players, they're getting hurt. So you have to be able to get off the court sometimes and just work on your fundamentals, on your fundamental game, right? So it's being disciplined on and off the court, working on fundamentals, and the right group that you have around you is very important. And how much time are you working on your game outside of just practice? There are kids and people that show up to practice and think they're going to get better because they actually went hard in practice. That's the bare minimum. You're supposed to go hard in practice. I remember one time somebody walked up to my mom and was like, "Man, you should be so proud of your son. He hasn't been in jail. He's a good kid and all of this stuff, and he's getting decent grades." She said, "That's the bare minimum. That's what he's
like,
supposed to do."
yeah, yeah,
That's his job. Matter of fact,
yeah, yeah,
you trying to give him credit for showing up for doing his job, and that's what he's supposed to do, right?
yeah.
So get your kid off the basketball court for a little while and have him get in the swimming pool and train. Get your kid off the basketball court for a while and teach him how to really run some stairs, get on some hills, and get a real coach, trainer for him, and have him work on things that other kids probably aren't working on. Right. So I think
Mm.
that's a very great question, and I feel like only a real coach would ask. But I'll turn around and ask you the same question. What do you think it is?
Man, that was a great answer because me and you, we come from the same city, Inglewood, but like you always say, we think differently. And you just taught me something. It's not that I didn't know it, but that would never be in my answer. And you're absolutely right. Getting a child away from the sport and doing something else, I think like when you said that, I thought about the word that came to my mind was dynamic. So now you take them out of sport and they're swimming. Now they're a more dynamic athlete. People wonder why certain athletes move a certain way, this, that, and the third. Then you start to talk to them. Oh yeah, I ran track. I swam, or I played tennis. I did this. I did that. So it's really important. But one of the things I see from the best players that I've been around that separates them, they they not necessarily doing well, they are doing something special, but they have a routine. They have a routine that they don't for anything, they won't sacrifice their routine. No matter what, they're going to do it, or and they're consistent. All right, the players that I've been around that are really good, they're consistent. The ones that aren't, they're all over the place. Sometimes
Well,
they're
real
working
quick,
on.
it was one thing you told me one time about Kawhi's workout. You was like, it's boring.
Yeah, it's super boring.
It's
It's
boring.
very boring.
It's boring.
You're not going to be wild watching Kawhi Leonard work out. Yeah,
He's
like
working on one thing for 30 minutes at a time.
yeah, yeah, like he might stay on. I've seen him stay on one spot for an hour.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen him stay on one spot for an hour, and I put it in the back of my mind. The next thing you know, we're playing that night, and he shoots the same shot, and I'm like, damn, damn. And to me, I learned a lot about training by being around Kawhi. It's not about all the fancy stuff. It's about shooting those same shots over and over and over, and it become a part of your muscle memory where, this shot might have a high level of difficulty to somebody else, but for you it's easy because you just shot that shot hundreds, if not thousands of times. All right. So yeah, I believe it's the routine. I believe it's the consistency. And then I believe it's the mindset, the confidence. And that's something that I'm teaching my son is basketball is mostly mental.
70%.
If you approach something with confidence, the outcome is way different. I think we limit the power of your mind. I know myself, I've been at the free throw line as a player and thought about missing, and I even visualize a miss, and then it happens. And then I'll correct myself, like, what am I doing? Why would you play with your life like that? Like, are you crazy? Visualize a make, and then it goes in. And
Yep.
it's like, you cannot tell me that the mind is not powerful. So those are things that I see personally from how the best get better and why they're great.
I think it's a reason why the name of this show is the Big Homie Podcast because you'll get nonstop jewels all day, every day, and that's another reason why for you need to tap in every week and get this good game. I think I always like to wrap up the show by letting everybody know how much I appreciate being able to be in this space and this content. And I think it's very important that we let everybody know that if you need any type of advice, that's what big homies are for, man. That's what mentors are for. Don't be afraid to speak up and let people know what you're going through. Some of those battles that we fight and you think you alone, man, you're not alone. There's one common thing I always try to say in this world, man. There's always somebody you can reach out to and look up to. I'm not the best role model, but Chad Bell is, man. So that's why you need to tune into the show and get some of that big homie advice, big homie game right here, man. Chad Bell, I appreciate you, man. Brother from another mother. And I've been rocking with you since what? We was 10 years old?
Nah, a little bit after that, like probably like 12, 13,
12.
something.
That's
Yeah.
incredible, man. That is
Yeah.
incredible,
30,
man.
30, 30 years of friendship.
That's
Over
wild.
30 years of
Over
friendship.
30 years. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So
most
man, shout
definitely.
out to you, man. Thanks. I couldn't have done it without you, man. I appreciate you being on this show, man, and appreciate all those out there listening to the show, watching the show. I'm Coach C Bell on Instagram. You can follow me there. You can also follow the Big Homies podcast on Instagram, also now on YouTube. You can also follow Coach T Flesh 500, T Flesh 500 on Instagram as well. We appreciate you tuning in. Until then, we out. Peace.